I know we talked a lot about like past relationships in terms of um, kind of like what was missing and things like that. But I don't know if we touched on what you learned while you were in it.
I think I would have been more kind. I would have been more patient. I would have taken the time to articulate what it was that I needed much more clearly. I would have maybe even written, I remember writing letters, but I usually wrote letters when I was upset and had, disgruntled things to say, rather than writing letters that were maybe constructive and maybe helped him understand me or the situation better. So my older, wiser self would have been more kind, I think, and
Okay.
maybe more patient, less judgmental.
And Dean, for you, I mean, is that along the same lines? Were there things that you learned?
Um, yeah, I guess so. I haven't thought about it a lot. I was pretty naive back in those days, and I was pretty self-centered, and I I probably would have, as a guy, communicated more, um, expressed myself more, because back in those days, I was pretty quiet, didn't say a lot, would put up with a lot, and then what I found I did, I would allow things to kind of build up and build up and build up, and then I'd explode.
Yeah,
Mhm.
me too.
And that wasn't a good way to handle it. I've learned since then that it's better to speak your truth or in the moment if you can, or fairly close to whatever issue comes up, because when you don't and you suppress it, it just does build up, and then something small happens in a relationship that you think's no big deal, but it's just the accumulation of all the other
Yeah.
stuff that just reaches a point and you
Yeah.
blow, and your partner's going, well, wait a minute, it was just this, but it wasn't just that, it was
Yeah. It was so
accumulation.
much resentment accumulating.
Yeah, so that's
Mhm.
one main thing that I learned was, when if there's an issue, if there's something bugging you, speak up about it
Mm,
from the get-go. Don't
mhm.
don't ignore it and just let it pile up and pile up and pile up, because then it just blows, and it's not really fair on your partner to do that, actually.
So what would you say if someone was to start right now getting on that path to finding the right person? What are the first few steps that they should take? But
I think it's getting to know yourself. Your most important relationship in the whole world is with yourself.
what would you say are some steps towards that?
Mm.
Like tools or like journaling or
Yeah, I would say finding a way to be okay on your own. It's like how to
Mhm.
become your own best friend. So,
Yeah.
it's in that quiet time. It's in the bathtub, or walking in nature, or sitting outside and observing. It's the contemplative moments when you're with yourself and you're developing a relationship with yourself. It's the thing that starts to happen is, you stop looking to the outside world to complete
Or
you. And
how
when
did
you're
you do
young,
that? Like I know one thing is you guys both took spiritual workshops. That's how you met. So, and I know you did yoga and meditation classes. So,
I remember paying attention to my dreams, like taking an
mhm,
interest in my internal world.
mhm,
Paying attention to my dreams. I used to journal a lot, or even draw a lot, sketch and doodle. Um, I think it was just being okay with being on my own, and
mhm,
somehow stopping that yearning that if I go somewhere, someone has to be with me, or I'm not happy unless I have plans. Um, a weekend would face me on my own, and I think, what am I going to do all weekend? And I remember sort of
right.
when I was alone for the weekend, I would sort of fight on Friday night. I'd think, oh, I'm a loser. Oh, no one wants to be with me. Everybody else has someone to be with on Friday night.
Yeah.
And then by Saturday, I'd start to get busy and I'd do projects. And then I'd feel really excited inside myself. And it was like I was building this relationship. Well, by Sunday, I was like, I didn't want the phone to ring. I didn't want anyone to bug me. But then I found I'd have to kind of do that process each weekend that I was alone, because it's
Mhm,
like I had to overcome that addiction that we have, that somehow the external world is going to satisfy us, when actually the reverse is opposite. Our internal world is what's rich and full and has memories and has inspiration and creativity and it becoming your own best friend. It sounds really corny, but it's actually very really important, because then you're not seeking for any form of completion outside of yourself.
Can
Everything
I?
that comes on the outside
Yeah.
is bonus, is gravy. It's the icing on the cake. It's where there's a lot of magic in relationship for sure, but I think we hang on to external relationships too much when it's really about. But this is, my 60-year-old self. I'm not even sure my 30-year-old self was just first learning about that.
So you weren't like between relationships, like, I don't know, maybe you didn't have that as many before in that last one before Dean, but you weren't like jumping to be, I don't know if 20 years ago there was online, I don't know what there was, but you weren't jumping at putting yourself out there. It was more like, if it comes, it comes, like meeting somebody.
I think I'm a Libra. I think I've always been attached to relationships, and I always had crushes and preoccupations. And Libras are really, really interested in relationship. And I've done all of my learning in relationship for sure. But again, my older self would say to my younger self, your most important one is with you, and it's okay to just be you, and it's okay to be with you, and it's okay. The magic and the attention and the approval and all those things you can get with yourself.
But I guess what I'm saying is it a good idea to put yourself out there, or is it better just to focus on yourself? And then if you happen to be out and you happen to meet someone, like, what would your approach be?
Well, my thing is that I think once you've developed a more intimate relationship with yourself and what your passions are and what you love to do, my sister, for instance, was really loved birds. She was passionate about birds. She loved to learn about them. She took a couple special summer courses in ornithology and went on it was like a summer camp. She was in university, but it was like a camp where you went for the summer to learn about birds. Well, of course, that's where she met her true love and has spent the rest of her life with him, because they had a shared mutual passion that draws you together, with someone. So
like-minded.
So you get on about doing what it is that you love, and you're radiating more of your true self and your authenticity in that, and it naturally draws someone.
Can I ask you, if you were to say your top 3 interests, like personal interests, not the ones you share with Dean, but things that you focused on before meeting Dean? I mean, spirituality is one of them, and then Dean happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the top one. Anything about spirituality and learning. So it was yoga, or it was learning a brain gym, educational kinesiology. It was learning about dowsing. It was learning about I love taking courses about anything, crystals, and so I was thirsty in that world. And that's also when I knew that I wanted a partner that I could share that with, because it was so exciting to me. And I took a couple of workshops with husband and wife teams, and when I did that, it was like, oh, that's what I want. I want a partner that I can share the love of this, because it felt like a different world, and either you got the world or you didn't get the world. And I wanted a partner who understood that world, and ideally would share it with me and teach and be as passionate about it with me, and then co-teach, which is exactly what happened.
Wow.
So, but it was the example of being with 2 couples, actually 2 specific couples. And then there was another older couple when I was working in my job. There was an older couple that were on the board of, this art gallery that I worked with, and a government art gallery. And they'd been married for 70 years. And I said,
wow.
what's the secret to being married that long? And he said, very fine, a polished gentleman in a 3-piece suit, a beautiful man. And he said, we have shared values. And we both believe in the same God, even though we go to 2 different churches. He said, in everything we do, we're a team. And when he said that to me, I thought, yes, that's what I want. I want someone who can share my love for the bigger magic of the universe, and that we would be a team in that. And that's exactly it. We're a team in everything we do. And that's what
So cool.
so when, so I guess for me, it was the external example. So it does help to have mentors. It helps to have teachers. It helps to be inspired by how other people are and say, I want that. I think you
Yeah.
also have to know that you deserve it.
You guys are my inspiration. So
Oh,
Well, we're certainly an example of what's possible.
definitely.
There's a lot of people, women particularly, don't think it's possible.
Mhm.
And yet, if that's what you believe, then you make it hard. So
Mhm.
it absolutely is possible. And I'll just back up what Beck said. The important thing is, if you're following what you love, yeah, I mean, if you want to put yourself out there, I know what you mean with all the dating sites and all that stuff and be matched up. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you feel called to do. But certainly to go out and get involved in the things that you love to do, just like Rebecca's sister, that's how we met at a spiritual conference, which is the mainstay of our passion at the time, still is what we teach. Then you're getting every possibility of connecting with someone of like mind. You said the words yourself. So if you're online, that's great. But if you're sitting in your room and you're just relying on online someone to find you, I don't think that's probably a healthy way of doing it. Get out once things turn around a little bit, but get out and do things that you love and you're passionate about. Then you're going to meet other people who love and are passionate about the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, and remember, we first spoke about how important it was to kind of make a list of all the attributes of the person that you want to attract, really.
Yeah.
And what I found is that I just kept making the list longer. I'd say, oh, I forgot that. And oh, I want to, I want that. And I just kept adding things to it or becoming more refined in the words that I was using. And then the secret is to become the list so that you're not seeking for something outside of yourself. So life is getting on about being what your list is. Being fun, being energetic, loving being in nature, being adventurous, being responsible with money, being sexual, loving to dance, like all the things that you are seeking in another, become that. And then the law of attraction, it's a universal law. It works. If you become what it is that you want, then it will, you just naturally.
It should get people excited because it's not that it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of things to do. If you have a long list and it's like, oh, what's something I could do to be this more? And then suddenly you have all these things that start coming up to do.
Yeah. So when you can focus and understand who you are, and that's a process, because you say, well, how do you do that? Well, through a process of meditation and self-exploration and looking at your belief systems. And if you are not very nice to yourself, you're going to attract someone that's not going to be very nice to you as well. So that self-love and becoming your best friend is critical, because you then attract someone who will mirror that.
Yeah.
Who will honor you because
you
honor
you. Because if you don't have a high self-esteem, don't really honor yourself or struggle, you're going to attract someone in that's going to play out that role for you and treat you in that manner.
Yeah.
It sounds simplistic, but I've had enough experience. We've had enough experience. We've seen enough and worked with clients. It's how it works to the T, to the nth degree.
Well, and from personal experience, I mean, I can say now in hindsight, one of the most important relationships I ever had was one of the most difficult, because he didn't respect me. He lied to me. He was manipulative. He was really mercurial. One day he would be great, and the next day he'd be angry. I wouldn't even know why. And what it did was actually teach me to have boundaries. It taught me to have self-respect, to not allow someone to treat me that way, to trust my instincts, because in the end I knew he was lying to me, but I wasn't being honest with myself.
So however you see relationships in your mind from what you saw growing up with your parents and anybody else, however you perceive them to be, then that's what you'll attract. That's how it will be.
What's the first thing people can do, or first couple of things they can do to move away from that? So like, I know you guys do affirmations, and what were things that enabled you to get into that wave, into the frequency of positive and attracting positive? Was
Well,
it
that was
again?
a long, yeah, for me, it was a long process of of the workshops and things I did,
Okay.
because the example of relationships that I saw growing up, let's say it wasn't healthy, it was kind of lacked. So I had made certain observations and thought, well, that's how relationships are, because that's what I saw. But in the end, I realized I had to do a lot of clearing around that, because in the end, I realized that having that viewpoint on a relationship, in actual fact, my other relationship basically manifested what I thought about relationships. In other words, it was not harmonious, and it was aggressive at times, and we weren't communicative, and it was all the things that I thought about relationships. My first relationship became that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned that, and then that's when I had to do a lot of clearing around that.
What do you, when you say clearing, what do you mean? What did you do? Clearing? Like, did you go to a therapist? Did you journal?
Well, no, I did mainly workshops, but they were intensive. No, I'm not a real therapist, but I did workshops where I had to go in and really look at what my beliefs were, and the impact that my father had on me, and what I thought of relationships, and how men behaved towards women, and because that's what I saw growing up. So I just thought, oh, that's how you do it. But in fact, it wasn't a good example. And when I realized that, I had to go through and then reframe everything in my mind, and let go of all the old stuff that I decided was the truth, but of course it wasn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is actually a process that we do in the mastery course that we teach, where we ask each student to look at the relationships in their life, primarily their mother and their father, and the impact that they had. So the male and female role models, what were they like? What were their attributes? What were their belief systems? What were that they thought was positive about them, and what did they think was negative about them? And so it's a really revealing process where the student can see that they actually have all those attributes, positive and negative, at play or working through them. They can keep the positive ones and magnify them by their choice, but the most valuable thing is to look at the negative ones and see what it is that you have inside yourself that are the same as that. What did you learn? That those are key places where you can find your own limitations. And then you have an opportunity to shift that. Awareness is first thing, taking stock and becoming aware of what they are. And then often from there, what we encourage the student to do is to turn each thing into a positive, to find the antidote to that thing.
Right.
So that through an affirmation, through a shift in the belief system, they can choose to not be judgmental like their father was, or not be short-tempered like their mother was. And how would they do that? With increased patience, with greater compassion, so finding the antidotes to those things and choosing to be a different person. I mean, we do that by natural evolution anyway. That's thank goodness for evolution. We're always better than our parents. But when you take full charge of that, when you do that consciously, you can move quickly and you can transform into the highest possible expression of yourself. But consciously, it's very powerful.
Have you seen dramatic changes in people when they've done that? They've
miraculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is kind of like just the first thing that comes to you, 5 self-seeking questions for people that might be listening. If they're in the relationship, what would be ideal questions to ask to remind you of a quality relationship that you're deserving of? so that if you're in a certain state, you can ask yourself these questions and be reminded of, okay, this is what I need, or okay, no, this is not in alignment.
I would say the first one is how am I feeling?
How am I
Most
feeling?
people are not in touch with how they really feel, and go, they might just stop at a top level feeling like, I'm frustrated, or I'm angry, or I'm impatient, but what's behind that? And what's behind that? And what is it that's really bugging you? What is it that's really triggering you?
Can you guys tell me a couple more questions, self-seeking questions?
I don't know whether this is a question, but I think it's a really key thing that we've kind of been talking around here, which is that everybody must take 100% responsibility for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the self-love thing too, but it means everything in our external world, we're very powerful creators, we're very powerful influencers in our own lives, and we have to take 100% responsibility that everything happens in our lives. This is also the soul's perspective, which is that, we have a greater intelligence and purpose and presence way beyond our physical expressions. So, it is a soul's perspective that we're here to learn very specific things. And when we come to learn very specific things, we must take 100% responsibility for that. And that's also we can't blame another if we take full responsibility for
I
who
think
we
that
are.
almost goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
And
then to follow on from that, another one is it's very important to have your boundaries, because so
what might be in a question form for boundaries, like do you feel valued? Like what would be a question form of that?
How a question for which it's like
For
how
boundaries.
well we teach people how to treat us.
Mm-hmm.
Heard that one before, right? We teach people how to treat us by allowing them to get away with saying not very nice things, or taking advantage and saying they're going out and they'll be home a certain time and they don't turn up and they don't call. I mean,
yeah.
And you allow that to happen.
So how much are you sacrificing?
Yeah, they think that's okay to continue to do, but you've got a boundary is self-love, is a self-loving act to say, don't talk to me that way, or, I need you to let me know if you're going to be late. You need to let me know. It's just out of respect. Or boundaries are really important. And how you put that into a question, I'm not sure. It's like
almost like how much are you sacrificing, and when you're sacrificing, do you feel good about it or not?
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a relationship shouldn't be about sacrifice. There's certainly compromise. There's certain things you compromise.
Right.
A relationship shouldn't be about sacrifice. It should be about actually upliftment and supporting each other and bringing the best out. Sacrifice.
I would say if sacrifice shows up, it's not your relationship.
Yeah.
Because you want to come together as equals, and what you create together brings more, so that it's good when you're getting more than you expected, when it's an add-on, when it's exhilarating, when it's, I read a quote once that said, I deserve to attract life-enhancing people into my life. But you wouldn't say such a thing if you didn't know that you deserved that, right? That you were worthy, that you were actually a life-enhancing person yourself. Why do you want to collect a bunch of people that suck you dry and pull you down? You want life, and life is precious. Life is important. Life is extraordinary. You want to surround yourself with people who stir that up in you and in your life. And if they don't, it's self-loving to say, and maybe that's a boundary too, to say, and sometimes it's just half boundaries. It's like, I don't mind hanging out with that group of people, but I'm going to go for 2 hours and I'm going to leave. I'm not staying till midnight. It takes too much for me. It drains me afterwards, but I can go a couple of hours and see those old friends that, are fun, and we reminisce, but I'm not hanging out with people who are going to drag me down. That's an act of self-love and boundaries. And it's ironic to be talking about relationships and coming together, but also be talking about boundaries. But boundaries are really, really key because
Yeah, I think
those
it
are
comes
acts of
hand in
self-love.
hand. Yeah.
Boundaries kind of they reflect on the respect you have for yourself. You've got to have enough respect for yourself for that respect to be given to you. You earn respect, but it comes from self-respect. If you don't respect yourself and expect others to respect you, it ain't going to happen. So respect is part of boundaries, that you respect yourself enough to say, no, that doesn't work for me. Go ahead. I think that's great that you want to do it. It doesn't work for me. So I'm choosing not to go or not to do it. And in a respectful relationship, it's like, okay, great. And I'll often say that. Beck will say, I'm going to do this. Do you want to come? Say, no, not this time. I don't think, just don't feel like it or whatever. And it's okay. And other times I'll go, yeah, I'd love to go, and vice versa. So it's just,
sometimes it's even about what movie we want to watch, you know. It's like, no, I want to, and you don't, but we respect that so that we can stay free in our relationship. I can watch what I want to watch. He watches what he wants to watch. Thank goodness for 2 TVs, you know.
And that's a very minimal, like most people have huge boundary issues, not so much about which movie to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
But what you find in a healthy relationship, those boundaries are kind of they're automatic. In other words, you know where the line is with your spouse or your partner. And so you respect that. And you accept, because we're all different. I mean, we're different parts of the world, different cultures, and so we've learned a lot coming together. But it's about respecting whatever Rebecca's choosing or wants to do, and vice versa. So respect, and that's, as I said, that's part of boundaries. Boundaries and respect go hand in hand, and they're really important for a healthy relationship.
Are there any other questions that you wish someone asked you when you were in a past relationship that might have given you perspective? I mean, you guys already touched on almost everything, so if you can't think of anything, that's fine.
It's hard for me to formulate the question first, but the thought that came to mind was, you know, if there's something you need to say it. Because I think I spent a lot of time in former relationships wanting to say something about something small or something large, or something that I needed, or something that was bugging me, and I didn't say anything. So if you have if you're starting to build up a basket of stuff that you don't feel you can say, those are red alerts, every single one of them.
You've got to be able to speak your truth.
Yeah.
And there was another thing.
And you don't have to, like, just because there are a lot of them or a handful of them, it doesn't mean you're nagging. It's the way you bring it up. It's the way you say it.
Yeah, the way you say it. And the other thing, that's right. No secrets. You need full transparency. You need full
I remember you guys were saying that you already decided that in the very beginning, that you were not going to keep any.
So you need to be transparent, because as soon as you're hiding something from your partner, then that's a blip.
It starts to break away at the trust. You start to feel less close. You start to feel less
like
connected.
A cancer. Yeah,
I really do. I resonate with that, because I've seen the difference. Feeling loved to me looks like, just complete the sentence.
Feeling loved.
Yes, feeling loved to me looks like for each of you. So just take the time to think of.
Looks like
or feels like. Yeah.
Sorry about my shirt.
Feeling loved. Oh, no worries.
I went for a walk, and then I worked out, and then had a shower, and then I wasn't able to dry after the shower.
I didn't even notice.
Good.
Tie-dye, darn.
Yeah, it does look like that. Okay, feeling love to me feels. I guess I said looks like because. Okay, I'll rephrase it. You can say that feeling love to me feels like. Either one, whatever comes to you. I just wanted each of you to I wanted to hear what was at the end of that for each of you.
For me, it's
Uh-oh.
a feeling of, yeah. It's a, oh, baby. It's a feeling of freedom, which is
Oh, I love that.
a freedom to be me in
Mhm.
every way.
Yeah,
Good, bad, ugly, warts. Like there's nothing I have to hide. There's nothing that isn't good enough. That I'm free. I feel free.
that's
And
great.
that's really huge, because
That
if you
is.
don't feel free within the relationship, it will continue to trap you.
Yeah, yeah.
And that just ends up in a not good place. Um, it feels free, it feels natural. Like the overwhelming feeling I had when I first met Dean is that I already knew him. It felt like home.
Okay, feels like home.
Feels like home, which means you're safe, you're secure, you're free, you're natural, you can be uninhibited. It's easy. It's easy.
There's no anxiety, there's no worrying, there's like this a peace of mind almost, right?
Yeah.
Complete trust.
No
Yeah.
competition.
Complete trust. To me, it's a feeling. It's just natural. Like it's
Yeah.
natural. It's just natural. It's like it's meant to be. It's easy.
It's like when you're on your own, but better.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's the coolest thing in the world to come to a relationship already kind of chilled.
Yeah.
Because you're chilled with yourself. You're not, you're just natural. You can express who you are. You can be goofy. You can, share your natural sense of humor. There's no pretending, because,
No pretense. No pretense at all.
Yeah.
the pretending part early in young relationships gets really exhausting.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you're trying to be something that you're not, or
Yeah.
you're trying to fit in where you can't, and you're trying to like something that you don't. That's all pretending, and it's unnatural. And we get tangled up in stuff by our own pretending. So it's like we betrayed ourselves. So of course we're going to get betrayed in a relationship, because we're going to end up tangled in something that isn't true for us. So it leads back
Yeah.
to being natural with
And
yourself.
just to add to that, when people try too hard, I think that looks different for everybody. But one way is like people trying to seem interesting. So they're always putting in so much effort, but then you don't get it back. So I think that's unnatural when you're
Mhm.
trying, but then the other person isn't. So it's almost the resistance between you and the other person.
Mhm.
If that's not there and you don't feel it going back and forth, then that's a sign that it's not natural either.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's actually an early sign that shows up, because you're
Yeah.
trying to make something, it doesn't kind of fit, and you're really, really trying to make it
Yeah.
fit. That's an early sign,
Yeah.
you know.
It should be easy. Should be
Yes, it
easy.
should be easy.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, this was a book that I read. I wish I can now remember the title, but it was something like How to Find Your True Life Partner or something. This was, 25 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. Can't even remember the author, but I remember she said, what are your values? What are your 5 key values
Mhm.
that you want for yourself and that you want in a relationship? And those should be so known by each finger that when you first meet somebody, if they don't meet those 5 values,
I love
they're out.
that.
It's
Yeah.
quick, it's easy. You know them, they're on your fingers. You're in
Yeah.
a cafe or at a party with friends, and you meet somebody and you can already feel. And the other thing that I
Yeah.
remember about this book said, really pay attention to your first date, your first experience together, because that person will tell you everything about themselves.
This sounds like a great book. Please try and remember the name of it.
Okay, I will.
I would
Actually,
totally read that.
it was an excellent book. As I recall, the first chapter was Deal with Your Old Crap. So it was like
Okay.
number
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
is heal the
Yep.
past,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Forgive, resolve, detach. You
Mhm.
cannot attract a relationship if you're still grieving or upset or attached to one from the past. So release them so that you're open, so that you're free. And then the second one was starting to dream all the attributes of the person that you wanted and start your list. and, and make your list longer and make it detailed and make it really clear, the essence of this relationship that you so want. And chapter 3 was, okay, now become everything that you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
on your list. So a lot of the things that I learned and a lot of things that I applied in my own life came from that book. So I will
Yeah, that sounds like
recall
that
it.
would be
I
amazing.
loaned it to somebody and never got it back. And that's
That
why,
always happens. Really good books don't come back.
yeah, that's right.
Can you give me one example of value? Because I remember thinking about it when I thought about my values. I think harmony, would harmony be a value?
Could be, if that matters
Yeah.
to you. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
it would be honesty and respect.
Right. Okay. So those are values.
And
Integrity is a big one.
well,
Mhm.
integrity kind of encapsulates honesty and respect. You could
Yeah.
just say
Yeah.
integrity. And for
Right.
me, it was someone who was connected to their higher self and
Mhm.
to spirit.
That's a big one for me. Yeah.
I would say they're more mature. That's why Dean was 40 when I met him, right? I was,
Yeah.
39. You were 41, actually. So older men do seek. Women tend to, I think, and this is a sweeping generalization, but women start asking mature quicker and start asking those questions. We're already heart-based. We're
Yeah.
feeling centered. We're already connected to our intuition by
Yeah.
our design.
But,
So
and there is a difference between intellectual and high-minded, because there's a lot of intellectual people out there, but they're not.
Well, the intellect actually gets in the way of them being, because it's the
Yeah.
heart base, which is
Yeah.
how you connect to your soul or your higher self. When you're intellectual and in here, actually, that's probably a red flag.
That's a good question for you or for both of you, but how would you tell someone to differentiate if they're too into their intellectual side versus their higher mind?
intuition, maybe? How?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to generalize.
Yeah.
When people are in their intellectual mind, they're very much talking from that place, and it's very analytical,
Yeah.
kind of critical. It often is fear-based. And when you're in the heart space, it's like words don't really are not as important, but when you speak from your heart or your higher self, it's coming from a different place, which is usually uplifting, it's encouraging, it's life affirming,
It's soft.
it's softer, it's a connection. So when you're in your heart
Yeah.
space, you're connecting at that level, because you can't do that from here.
Yeah.
That's where the personality is expressed from. The ego expresses through the mind and the intellect. But I know people who think because they're intellectual or they've got a good memory or that they think they're better than anyone else,
Yeah.
but they're disconnected from here, and it's so obvious. And not that they're bad people, but
No, but it's frustrating sometimes, because I'll talk to people and I'm like, you're not really being authentic. Like I can feel like you're disconnected.
there's the word.
Disconnected.
Authentic.
Authentic.
Yes, that's my favorite word.
Yes.
That's the key. Authenticity comes from here,
Yeah.
not from here.
Yeah.
And also empathy is an attribute of a compassionate heart. So if someone's not able to empathize with another, that's a warning sign too. Someone who's over intellectualized way too much in their left brain and not in their right brain, which is their creative center and their expressive center, right? Their feeling center, they're not able to empathize. So you don't, someone who's empathetic is actually very sensitive, who would walk past a homeless person on the street and think, I wonder what it's like, how does that person survive when it's so cold?
And
They
it doesn't mean you have to
feel
be
that.
like Gandhi or Mother Teresa, but it just means things touch your heart before it even touches your brain and you
That's
overanalyze
right.
it.
Yeah, the difference is you walk past a homeless person and you can feel and go, wow. I say they're the masters because they've learned to do that, and that's what they're choosing at some level. And they're amazing as compared to someone in their head could walk past and it's critical, why don't they get a job, or loser or something like that, which is from the intellect. And it's putting someone else down to make themselves better.
I wonder, does meditation go with that if somebody's trying to become more heart-centered versus intellectual? And not that there's, again, not that there's anything bad with being intellectual, but to balance it so you're not just intellectual and forget about the heart space.
Yeah, meditation's good.
Well, I mean, the power of meditation is to learn to not allow our minds to control us.
Mhm.
So it actually helps just quieten the mind. We can never stop our mind. Thank goodness we have our minds that are continually talking, but we're actually teaching ourselves in meditation what's behind the mind. What's
Yeah.
behind that busy mind that's still working on the grocery list and worrying about all the sounds and everything that's going on? What's behind that? What's behind that? What's behind that? And who am I without those words and without that overactive mind?
Yeah.
And so that we actually learn to quieten our mind or become the witness of our mind. And then you think, okay, who am I that's witnessing what I'm thinking?
Yeah.
And that's when the bigger part of you can grow within, which is the boundaryless the boundaryless aspect of you that's without beyond definition.
Is there anything else other than meditation? I know you guys do Reiki, but are there other things people can turn to? Let's say meditation is just, they try it, but it's just hard and it's like a process for them. So while they're getting the hang of it, is there other things that they can do to?
Well, first of all, I'd say meditation is a lifelong process.
Yeah.
It's only those Himalayan masters that are in caves that can kind of put themselves in this state of suspense that are, true masters of it. It's a lifelong process. So even, Ian and I have been meditating for 30 years. There are days, I guess it's just like golf or something, there are days when it just doesn't flow for you. But you just keep trying, and sometimes you have a really deep experience. But it's also okay to be all that without judgment. But what was the question? Sorry.
Other things.
Nature.
Nature.
Yeah, actually, that's so true. Because when I go
Nature
out
is
and walk by myself in like a big forest, I'll feel like lighter somehow.
And the ultimate goal with all this, Tammy, is we're not trying to shut the mind down. What
No.
we want to do, and the intellect or the brain, we actually want to get it to align to the heart. So where the mind tends to run our lives because of all the worry and all the stuff that goes on, and that's how we're trying to navigate our lives. But when you actually tap into the heart, open that up and get in touch with who you are, the goal is to get your mind to respond to what the heart is. You get that to come in alignment to your heart. So the heart's leading, but your mind and your thoughts and your actions are responding to your heart. Whereas without the heart, you're just working from the head and you're missing that connection, as you said, to the higher self.
Yeah, we're flipping who the master is.
Yeah.
We somehow think the brain is the most important aspect, the master of our bodies.
But
No,
it's the heart.
And we're flipping that.
Yeah.
The Heart Math Institute have discovered that the heart is many more times more intelligent than the brain.
Wow.
And it has an influence of kilometers around us, around our energy field.
Wow.
So how we are in our being, that's why the path, seeking enlightenment, seeking a deeper intimacy with yourself, seeking our connection has a profound effect on the world. The more we can emanate peace, joy, love, all these
harmony,
high frequency emanations are emanated from our heart.
I really don't like disharmony.
Yeah.
I really don't like it.
Well, that's how we learn about harmony. That's how it's through disharmony that we yearn to seek harmony, and then we create harmony because we're very powerful creators. So thank goodness, we're in this earthly experience that teaches us by its opposite. It makes the journey feel like it goes on forever, but actually it's really, really powerful because we experience what we don't want in order to redirect ourselves to what it is that we do want. And then we make more of that. And we're very powerful. But we have to know what we don't want first.
And that happens in relationships. So you have these relationships and and it's like you realize, well, I don't want that in the person. I like that, but I don't want that, and I don't want that. So if they're not able to make the adjustments, they got to go. Otherwise, you're sacrificing or compromising too much that's never going to work. So then you go, no, I'd rather someone that is not so serious, that can have some fun and like to go out and dance. That's what I want. But until you go through a lot of these things, you don't know what you want. Until you know what you don't want, then you go, okay, I don't want that. So
I want someone who's responsible with money, not
yeah,
or has abundance consciousness, not lack consciousness. I want someone who loves working because what they're doing is their passion, and from that comes joy. Not someone who
hates their
is a
job.
lawyer because their dad made them become a lawyer.
Yeah.
That was on my list. I wanted someone who was passionate about what they did and did it effortlessly.
That was on my list, but I think for different reasons, because I wanted someone to spend time with themselves so I can have my own time.
Yeah, that's good.
That's all right.
We need that.
A little bit around. Yeah. That's cute.
I have a fun question for you guys. What's your opinion about arranged marriages?
Oh my goodness.
I asked another couple this, and I was very surprised by their answer, but I really want to know what you guys think.
Well, on first thought, I would have said, years ago, shocking, horrible, archaic, no one's going to, arrange a marriage for me. But I read recently about, if you're truly living, as many, in the Indian culture do, in a village where everybody knows each other, there are elders who, intimately know your own lineage and have watched you grow up and understand and truly have the best interests for the purposes of love and harmonious union for a couple to come together. I'm guessing those elders in the community may be able to make a better decision than the individual.
That's exactly what the other couple said.
Yeah.
Around that. Yeah.
I think this works in our old original communal, village society. Now, and then it gets, in contemporary life, and well, certainly in the past too, I'm sure it got tangled up in property and ownership and names and bloodlines and, other purposes, a father arranging a marriage for his daughter so that he can own more land. No.
It takes insightfulness and really, because I don't think just anyone can choose and say this would be a good match. You have to come from a place of really understanding how two people would match, right? And some parents are not good matchmakers.
So. And some parents don't know, and they really don't understand their children.
Right.
Put it this way, I think there would be some value in, if we had really, I think we would be wise to actually include those people whose opinions matter in making big decisions about relationships. So put it this way, instead, how, the tradition is the man goes to seek permission from the bride's father. Is it okay? Well, what if everybody, sat in a room and kind of talked about a relationship, or you went privately to your parents and said, what do you think? What do you really think about this guy for me? Do you love me when I'm with him? Then ask your best friend, ask your neighbor, I think those who love us actually can see things and know things before we can.
But it has to be like, if you don't think of your parents' opinion highly, then that would not work.
That wouldn't work.
That's right.
So I think what Beck said is true. In a traditional situation, I think it could work, but I think today it's been lost because it seems to be the pattern of trying to, in setting up a marriage, what else they can get out of it for
status.
Money,
yeah.
And soon as you go into that, you're done.
Do you believe in astrological marriages? Like, because I know in India they do like astrological compatibility. Like they do look at status too, but they also look at, are two people compatible astrologically? But
Mhm.
I don't know if that's something that I don't know if that could be a good base point. Like you date someone according to that, and then you see if it's a good match or not. Like you don't get married right away.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I like the idea, that someone might, it's almost like, a dating site. They might help you find somebody, but the act of falling in love and choosing your partner is such a beautiful, intimate, private process that I wouldn't want anybody mucking in that. I wouldn't want somebody
yeah,
I mean, who wants to be told what to do?
but
Well, no, one of my previous relationships,
hmm,
she was I'm a water sign, and
yeah,
she was a fire sign.
yeah.
So fire and water didn't really go.
But it depends on because I do a little bit of that. I mean, I'm an amateur, but if you look at a person's, I have you guys had your whole charts read? Like you
Mhm.
have,
Yeah,
yeah, not just the one sign,
no.
because
Right.
you can still get along with someone who is a different element, even though water not and fire are opposites, but depends on the rest of your chart.
Well,
But
that's right.
I'm sure you guys, because Rebecca, you're a Libra, and Dean,
It's a
you're,
Cancer.
Cancer.
oh yeah, you said Cancer. Yeah, see again, typically that might not look like it would be a match right away, but it's probably according to the rest of your
Mhm.
charts. Oh, I have a good one. What made you want to be married versus not just common law? I don't know if that's
Well, that was easy for us because we were from two different countries. So we had to be
oh,
married in order
okay.
to. I think probably at 40, I don't think we would have gotten married legally if we didn't have to, just
Okay.
because our spiritual marriage is the most important part to us, and our
Yeah.
own freedom. I mean, we would have gone through a spiritual ceremony of commitment to each other, and acknowledge that our relationship is for the purposes of mutual growth, our soul's growth, in honor of each
Yeah.
other, which
Yeah.
is what we said in our ceremony. So the paperwork didn't matter to us,
That's what I
but the
thought.
paperwork of marriage helps in other it's a legal document that helps
Yeah.
in other situations. That was actually one of the first feelings I had when I met Dean, is that he was already my husband.
Wow. That's
And I
so
was like,
cool.
never gonna, I'm not getting married again. Why would I ever get married again?
That's
It
amazing.
just, he was already my husband. That's just who he was. And I knew that. So to
Yeah.
me, going through with the other things were just,
Extra. I
yeah,
love that though.
yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, well,
But living, sorry, Dean, what were you saying?
I was going to say I didn't get down on one knee to propose, but like the tradition, put it that way, we were just lying in bed and said, "Well, what do you think?" and kind of talked about it, and said we'll sleep on it. And in the morning we thought, yeah, well, perhaps we should. It was
That's
like,
so cute. I
It was,
love it.
yeah, yeah. It was like, well, I guess we're engaged. Are we
yeah, I guess,
engaged?
yeah,
Do
okay.
you feel okay about that? We'll check in 24 hours and see how we feel. You still feel okay? Yeah, okay, we're engaged.
I love that so much because it's
Yeah,
not about the drama, the dramaticness of love. It's about what you're feeling with
That's
someone. It's
yeah,
very, very personal.
exactly.
yeah.
And
That's also
living,
what helps when you're older. If I had kids, I think that would be the one piece of advice that I'd give them, is don't be in any hurry, like
yeah,
wait till you feel like you're a mature adult. Sometimes you don't feel like
yeah,
that till you're 33 or 5 or 7 or even much later than that. So, to be married, my first marriage, I was, 22 years old. It's just too young. It's just
oh
too, you don't
wow,
know
that's
you
so
don't know
young.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
my
don't
mom was
know yourself
18. I'm like, what were you thinking?
yet. Yeah.
18 and my dad was 24. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Um,
my first husband was a different nationality too. So we had to be
okay.
married in order to be together, right? So
Mm,
it's the same thing. But no, I think I would say no, be single, fall in love with yourself first. And then who
yeah.
you fall in love with will honor that.
And it's not about the paper. It's about right now and how you're feeling every day with the person.
Mhm.
And living
So
together, sorry,
it's interesting though, once you have the paper, it feels different. It does.
does it?
Yeah.
In what way?
I don't know.
Better?
Maybe Yeah, it's a feeling of formality, of
Okay, so I mean that actually shifts it a little bit. If you do feel an appreciation for it, would you say, I mean, aside from the fact that it was already solid between you two, because you don't get married in order to make something solid, um, would you advise, maybe if they're solid in their relationship, would you say, yeah, it is something that does add, or yeah, I don't know if I'm asking that right.
well, for me it did. I don't, I assume it did for you. I don't know. Did it change it?
Uh, it makes it formal. There's a formality
Yeah.
to it
I
but
mean,
the interesting thing is that Rebecca chose to not take my name, which I was quite happy about,
oh,
which her father didn't understand.
He
oh,
thought I was being
Respectful
disrespectful.
to me, and I said, "Oh
Mm.
no, I don't.
oh,
No, you don't have to take my name at all. In fact, I never really expected it. So she's never taken my name. It's Rebecca Couch.
wow.
But that was because you,
Well,
yeah,
I had used a double barrel name in my first marriage and had just changed all the paperwork back to my maiden name. And I also fell in love with myself, especially with my maiden name. You know, during that time, it's like I was anchoring who I was, and I thought, no, I just am expressing the fullness of who I am in my late 30s. That's who I am, Rebecca Ann
Yeah.
Couch. And so I wasn't
But
interested in changing that.
yeah, I can understand for some people they're just okay with keeping their name. But in terms of getting married, do you feel like it does give you a sense of security, or what is it about it that you like about it? Because I don't know if it is a security thing because you were already secure before.
We
So,
were. I think maybe it does add a layer of feeling of security, but in
okay.
truth, it it that's a false sense of security, right? Because
Is it
we're
like
all
proving their love like to each other? Is that what it is too? Because I almost feel like some people are romantic at heart, and it's like when you do make that commitment and you're saying, I want you, I choose you, I want to marry you, I want that on paper, you're really showing like I have nothing holding me back. And
yeah.
so I feel like I don't think it's a bad thing to want to get married, but I
No,
do I do think that you should have it between the soul before you do it on
I
paper.
agree.
I,
I agree.
and in our case, there was no kids.
yeah.
So I think people take the name, women take the name because if there's children involved, it
Mhm.
certainly simplifies things. But no, I never once questioned it. I thought, no, that's who you are. I don't need you to go under my name at all.
Yeah.
It's her. She's still an individual, even
Is
within the relationship.
is it couch, like sitting on a couch? Is
Mhm.
that
Mm.
how, oh, I've never heard of that name before. That is such a cool
Yeah.
name.
Oh, thank you. I think it's English. Yeah, I think there are more couches in England, but
I feel like the name always has an effect on the person, like couch resembles comfortability for me. So maybe people are naturally always comfortable with
I hope that's true. That would be an attribute I would want. So,
I think you do make people comfortable.
thanks.
Um, so I don't know if I've asked this, but what's it like being around each other while you're at your worst? I think maybe you guys have, I don't know if you answered that, but because I don't know if you have a worst and when you're,
Yeah,
I don't
sure.
know.
Yeah, we have
Sure.
a moments. You have to. You cannot not have those moments. But I think in those, you've got to give each other that space at the time, but then you've got to find a way to come together to resolve or talk through what's going on. But initially, you just need to give each other some space, just
Yeah.
to work through, to simmer down, whatever it is. Then you've got to come together and work it through.
So let me just ask, because I know that's what you said in terms of like when you see each other during a stressful period. Um, when I say what is it like, what are you feeling when that happens? Like, because I guess I want the comparison between couples that do fight or don't get along, and if they're at their worst, like my feeling around it is I tend to feel disharmony. I get anxiety. I feel uncomfortable. So what do you feel when Rebecca's at her worst? And I'm sure it's not any of those things.
Um,
But like, what does that look like for you? Do you feel calm? Do you feel like, a bit
I don't like.
stressed for her, but you don't like it, but
I
does
don't.
it?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
like it, but I've got to allow. I've got to allow the process or whatever it is to give it some space and time. I don't like it at all because
But it doesn't affect you dramatically. It doesn't shift you dramatically like in other relationships have when they were at their worst.
not really. I might just go quiet and just
Yeah.
I don't tend to talk much. Just tend to back off to give it that space.
I disagree.
No,
I think it's really, really, really painful.
Oh, really?
Like it's painful. And
No, I want to hear this, because if it's painful, no matter how great you are together, then that gives people a bit of a breather.
I think because we are so harmonious the majority of the time.
Mhm.
When we're not, it's really painful. Like
Mhm.
it hurts. It hurts physically. It
Yeah.
aches. It's for me, it's physically painful.
Okay.
And I don't like thinking that he's a jerk.
Right.
I don't like
Yeah,
thinking,
I know that feeling when you really love someone or you
yeah,
really
like I
adore
don't want to
someone.
think he's an asshole. So when that happens, it's only ever temporary.
It's temporary, but I like that you're so honest about it, because I think that gives me and probably other people relief to know that can happen even in the most healthiest of
Yeah.
relationships.
The truth
So
of the matter is, when there's something bugging us, something or happens between us, or we have sharp words,
yeah,
or it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, 99% of the time, it actually isn't about our relationship.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
about something that's going on inside of me or inside of him. And those things
yeah,
crash together in that moment. And then we have to figure out what it is that just happened. You
yeah,
spoke to me the way, it's like,
yeah,
usually it's something underneath that actually isn't about our relationship. Does that feel right to you? And then the sooner we talk, the better, because if there's a long
for
period of time,
sure.
it's painful.
Yeah. No,
I don't like it.
I'm relieved to hear that, because I just feel like, I thought that even someone in the healthiest relationships, if they see someone's worst and they're not exactly in the most harmonious state with the other person, everything is still rainbows and sunshine. But it's good to know that, like, you can still feel like that, um, even with someone you feel so close to. So
Yeah.
even because it's temporary, that's the key thing. It's not,
Mm.
doesn't last for that long. But
Well, and usually as a result of whatever it is that happens, we come together and we go sit in the living room together, which is usually where we are when we're counseling other people. It's like, we head to the sanctuary, we know where to go to talk, because it puts us in a certain, state of, equal state and respect.
Mhm.
And we talk it out. And I would say always each of us learn something from that. And it's like there's a cog in the wheel and it gets jammed and it causes this conflict. And then when you come together and you talk it out, it somehow enters into a different gear and things get better as a
Yeah.
result.
Yeah.
So even though it's really painful when it happens, it's usually a sign that it's time to up our gear.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's in communication or respect or
Yeah.
how we're behaving, or usually what it is that it helps us come to an understanding of something inside of ourselves that we get to resolve, and then we're better. So
Yeah.
it's a positive evolution. When shit happens between us, the outcome is always better. But boy,
Again, from what it sounds like, it comes down to how you're able to navigate through it. It's not so much about the fact that it happens, because I think that can happen for anybody, but it's about how you process through it and how you communicate through that, because a lot of people don't, and they still feel that horrible feeling for like days or weeks. So,
Yeah.
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 No, you've got to work it through. And I guess that's what I meant when I say I don't like it. It's painful, and I tend to withdraw a little bit, give that space, but I need to withdraw and reflect on, well, what did I say? Or, I can see that was a program that was how my dad used to be, and that can come out of me sometimes, and I need to be aware of that. So I need to reflect myself to see what my role in it was, to then before we go and sit and talk, so I can have got that opportunity. But no, it's painful. It's no fun, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But, it goes back to, I think we said it before, that your grandmothers had that old adage about, don't go to bed with unresolved,
Yeah.
having had a fight. I really think that's wise advice, because if you sometimes it's big, you need to sleep on it, but in general, fix it as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah.
You may need to split, you may need to go have your thing, you may need to pout for a while, you may need to
don't let it keep going. Don't let it sit there and fester. And
the sooner you deal with it, and the sooner you get on about getting to the next
and
gear.
I actually think that's a red flag. If somebody does want to just avoid it and wants to let things fester and doesn't want to confront, I think that's a really bad sign.
That's a
huge red flag.
Yeah.
Because that just piles up and causes misery in the future.
And then the other person isn't fully expressing themselves, and it's that's a no.
You got it.
Yeah. Relationships need constant calibration every day, all the time. And the more dedicated you are to that calibration, the more they'll stay harmonious. If you're not dedicated to that calibration within yourself or in your relationship, it goes off the tracks, and then you got to rescue it from way off track.
And that compatibility, I think, comes to if you're compatible with the person, then you have the same rhythm with the calibrations. I think if you don't have the same rhythm and wanting to keep at it, then that means it's not compatible. Because if somebody's like, this is just too much for me, like there's so much and I can't. So that's definitely.
Well, and a key thing to pay attention to is, again, maybe advice I'd give to a son or daughter is, some people have really experienced a lot of trauma in their lives, whether it's, huge trauma that they experienced when they were a child, or long-term trauma, water drip trauma, of having an alcoholic parent, or, any kind of abuse, so people have experienced trauma. Have your radar up high for that, because someone who's experienced trauma has a lot of work to do. That's what they signed up for in this life. That's what their soul chose to teach them. But if they're not dealing with their traumas, you will get tangled in them, and you kind of feel clear of it. And maybe you're an empath, and I know for me, I'm empathic. So I have the ability to perceive someone's greatest potential. And I see that, and I believe that they can reach it too. But if they're not tuned in, if they haven't dealt with their traumas and healed and have that vision for themselves, I spend my life holding up, this ideal of their potential, but they don't have it themselves. And you end up tangled in a lot of disappointment with that. So I would say to, my son or daughter, pay attention to what someone's been through. Pay attention to who their parents are and what their childhood experience was. Someone who got tossed around from foster home to foster home, right? Chose a lot to learn in this life, chose, there probably is an old soul who chose a big experience, but it means they also need help to heal from trust, abandonment, some of the big issues that, and if they haven't done a lot of their own personal work to heal those, it'll show up in the relationship. And are you willing to go there?
Are you willing? Yeah.
Well, that's a mistake a lot of women make, I think, is they take on a guy and they know that there's issues, but they think they can fix him, or they think they can change him. So they take them on as a project. Bad move. it doesn't often work out well,
Yeah.
because you can't change somebody unless they want to do the work. And in a relationship, it's just not a good thing to do.
Well, you just think about how much it takes to change yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's huge
Yeah.
to turn that
Yeah.
barge to get it. It takes years. And
Mhm.
the thought that we can actually do that to or for somebody else is such an illusion.
Yeah. That's a good self-seeking question, is how
Yes.
willing are you to deal with the other person's wounds and trauma?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, oh, sorry?
Oh, just reiterating what Dean said, many women will accept a high degree of that, and then
Yes.
they end up tangled in that.
And it doesn't end well usually.
Being
No.
fixers, being
Trying to
healers,
fix.
being mothers, a partner does not want a mother. And in a partnership, you don't want to be a mother.
Yeah.
That's not very sexy.
No, I don't want her to be my mother. I don't want her mothering me. No, thank you. That's a turn off for me. Don't mother me.
Yeah.
I don't need mothering. I've got a mother.
What's
Just
what's an example of mothering? Like saying,
just fussing about, and have you got this? And like
Are
what
you
mothers
are
do.
you
Oh.
going out? You don't have, that coat's not warm enough.
oh gosh, no, that's horrible.
Those kinds of things. Did you pack your
Yeah.
lunch? Mother, have you, you don't feel well. Are you going to do anything about that?
Yeah, no, that's not anyone's cup of tea.
Yeah.
What?
Well, you'd be surprised.
Really? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. You tend to get into a rhythm, and when
Mhm.
you're in a rhythm, and you're harmonious and you're in a rhythm, it just flows, because effortless is a flow, right? And if it
Mhm.
becomes an effort, you're either pushing against something or resisting something within the relationship. So
Yeah.
we we know each other really well, so we tend to know our strengths and weaknesses. So we tend to flow very well together, and that
Yeah.
shows in our work. We do a lot of work together. We hold workshops together. We do
Mhm.
Zoom calls
And
together.
and of course, effortlessness is so subjective, because I can ask that and someone else might say, it requires effort, but to them, effort is really not that much effort compared
Yeah,
to other people.
yeah,
So
yeah.
so one way, I remember hearing someone saying, this marriage is not a walk in the park. And I'm like, no, but it should be a walk in the park. Otherwise, why do you want to be married?
Exactly.
So if you can give me an image of that, is it like a walk in the park? Is it like a fairy tale? Or, I mean, I know they say it's not like a fairy tale where there's always things that come up and it requires um, some effort, but is it generally speaking, on a rhythm, like day to day, is it generally a walk in the park? Or what image would you give to that?
Well, what comes to my mind is that we don't have a clear delineation of tasks. In other
Mhm.
words, there are some things that Dean does that he likes to do, and some
Mhm.
things that I do that I like to do, but we actually share everything. So, I take out the garbage. Sometimes he takes out the
Yeah.
garbage. He does the dishes and cook, like we don't. So
Yeah.
we're even like a team in what we do, doing the laundry. We kind of,
Yeah.
I'll put it in and Dean will go down and put it in the dryer, and I'll
Yeah.
fold and then maybe he folds. Like, so there
Yeah.
isn't this really, really clear, so that there's like, oh, you're a woman, you do that, and oh, you're a man, you do that.
Yeah.
We share, and that actually gives you a feeling of independence within the relationship, because I fill up my car with gas and I take it to the shop when it needs, you know what I mean? So we have an independence. And so there isn't anything that either of us can't do in the relationship.
What
Right?
would the image be? Like, for example, a park is an image, a nice image of like relaxing, calm. Like,
Mhm.
what's an image for you that would resemble that effortlessness between you? Such a weird question.
Well, it's like it's like you're floating down a stream, and you're floating with the current, right? And you're just
Mhm.
floating and you're just going along, but then you might bump into the bank, or you might bump into a rock, but then she'll get around it, and you know, and it's just and might get a few rapids along the way, but you know, it's you just get in the flow, and if a challenge shows up, you know, we're mature enough and have learned enough how to deal with it and talk it through, and you know, we make sure that, you know, I tend to manage all the financial stuff, but I'll often, you know, update Rebecca and say, here's where we are at right now. Here's what our mortgage, it's, you know, this is what we have here, we have there, and just to let her know. So I'm not doing it all and she doesn't know anything. It's like we share everything, and that way you're sharing you're in the ride. It's a ride, you're in it together.
And in terms of like basic harmony, like not fighting as much, or having like a calmer state of mind day to day, that effortlessness, like how would you rate that? Is that like 0 out of 10, 1 out of 10? Like what, how, because I guess I'm trying to pinpoint, like, for a healthy relationship, how much effort should there really be, you know? And I know there's a little bit, there's like that effort that you would put in yourself, but it shouldn't be to the point where it's like 10 out of 10, you know? So that's why I'm asking for a specific number or an image of, you know, what people could expect.
When you know each other as well as we do, you kind of know what the other person likes and doesn't like, and what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and you take all of that into consideration. So that's a respectful thing. I know Rebecca might not like a certain thing, and so that's fine with me. I honor that. So as far as effort, I don't know, 2 out of 10. Is that what you mean? It's like it's
on the low end. It's on the low end.
Yeah, it's natural. I mean, effort, it's not effort. No effort. No effort.
You know, put it this way, life is challenging enough.
Exactly.
It's hard enough.
Exactly.
All the things about living and surviving and working, and, you know, family complexities, and just everything is hard enough that your intimate relationship should be a refuge from all of that, a place that is the antidote to all of that.
It shouldn't add to your stress, it should take away from
Exactly.
No. If you are less stressful on your own, it's a sign.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
that's another question. That's another self-seeking question. How stressful are you compared to when you're on your own? Is it more or less?
Yeah, because ultimately, if you're in a relationship and you're walking on the eggshells, or you're trying hard that you know that you don't want to upset them because of this, if you're doing that dance, there's a lot of effort in that. That's no fun.
So what's the number out of 10 in your past relationships for both of you? Like, if you were to say the effortfulness, but the effort.
My last one was 10 out of 10.
Yeah, that's the comparison that I was looking for. And for
it
you,
was difficult.
Rebecca,
I had to try to dance around things.
Yeah. And was that the same for you, Rebecca? Was it like a 10 or an 8, or was it in the higher end?
My situation was different because there was an easiness about it.
Okay.
There was a familiarity and a comfort about it, but it was like living with my brother. So I didn't have the intimacy and what I wanted, or sharing, or the planning for the future together, that feeling of, so, you know, the stress and the disharmony was happening more inside me, because I realized externally it all looked great and I wasn't happy. And then it was easy to kind of think, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
So the what's wrong with me led me on my spiritual journey. So in the end, it was a great gift that helped me live a life that sought to answer that question. So it was a little bit different for me, but maybe really the question for me in that case would have been, to what degree are you fully in every aspect of your being satisfied, right? Because you can have wealth and a beautiful home and you can have all the trappings and
Yeah.
still not have it work inside.
Yeah.
And then you have everybody looking at you thinking, I can't imagine you have everything.
Mhm.
Why are you leaving everything? What's wrong? How could you
Yeah.
do
Yeah. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and on every level, you should feel like you're fully satisfied and um,
So it showed
not
me
expect less.
it showed me that I was very powerful in manifesting externally, but then what about internally? And so when I went then on my internal
Absolutely.
journey, that became more important.
Yeah.
And when you flip that, then what you have, what Dean and I create together materially, or to be able to create a beautiful garden or a beautiful home together, is a bonus. It's
Yeah.
not the reason, it's a
Yeah.
bonus. And then, you end up having beautiful, comfortable couches that you can hang out on.
Yeah.
It's like we have to get our own, our own moral compass set to what is true for us, and then
Yeah.
everything else follows. And that's why it takes some life experience. You don't. It's hard to find at 23 and 27 and even 32 sometimes, right?
Mhm.
We're working on it. We're building it. We're building our character. We're learning what it is to be true. We have lots of relationships. Every relationship teaches us about ourselves.
Do you guys, this is related to, there's people who believe not to have sex before marriage, but I don't think there should be there's no rules. It's not
No
like,
rules, no rules.
yeah.
It's like whatever you
It's
choose.
not about limiting yourself. It's about fully knowing yourself.
Yeah.
So
You want to know the whole package.
it's not like, especially for a man, it's not like he'll meet someone who hasn't waited and is like, you're not for me. It's not like it works like that, right? It's not like, that's just like old school.
Yeah, I think I don't think you can put rules to any of this. Everybody's got to make up their own and what feels right for them. Yeah.
Again, the only thing I'd say to my son or daughter is allow the unfolding of sexual intimacy to grow naturally between you, and not be something you feel you've got to do on the third date or something. People go so quickly that I think, a mature person allows that to unfold and express itself naturally. I know it's hard to say to a 25-year-old who's just raging with hormones and, and freedom and everything. But I think that's, there's a deliciousness about particularly about the first and new discovery sexually that you want to savor, like why have that be in the first, early in the relationship? Like, I know it's hard to hold back, but there's enjoy the beautiful stages as they come.
Is there a difference between romantic love and marriage love? Like, a lot of people will say you can't have it all, like passion and a best friend.
I think you can have it all. I think you can have it all. I just think maybe your perception of it, again, it's more harmonious and flowing. I mean, I've experienced radical passion in a relationship, but it was temporal. It wasn't sustainable long term. It was a short-term extremely passionate relationship, but it didn't last, a couple years. So it's like, how would you sustain that in a marriage, long-term marriage, except that I would say I'm deeply passionate about being with Dean and my love for Dean and how I feel about our marriage, but it doesn't show up in, flashing lights and,
but it is there. You do have both. You have there is the passion and the romance, but there is also the foundation of a marriage with the core values, and it can go together. It's not like
Oh yeah.
You have to have a marriage, but then you have to have a lover. Like I hate when I hear things like that, when people
Oh
have,
yeah. No, you
yeah,
can have both for sure.
Your relationship doesn't need anything outside of it.
right. Yeah. Yeah, I think we did cover that. One last thing, there's a quote, you meet your soulmate in order to bring about systemic change on this planet, inspired by your desire to share your love with the world. So I almost feel like you guys did that and are doing that when you created Heartlight. So you do agree with that quote that when you are with the right person, you together, you naturally bring something to the world.
Huge. It's
Yeah.
amplified when there's the two of us and with the work we do. So, we meditate together often. We do everything together. So that love and that respect is an energy field that we emanate, and people feel that when they come to our house. They just love to come. They as soon as they step inside, they can feel that energy that emanates from us, and that for all of us, and then that emanates out to the world. And we're here at this time as change makers and to hold a certain frequency, particularly now with what the world is going through. This is what we've come together, and being together does amplify the energy that we're able to project, I guess, out to the physical world.
And we knew that from the minute we came together, because we came together for spiritual purposes. And we knew that each of us had our own individual mission, but together it was exponential.
Yeah.
And then we have focused that in everything that we do.
Yeah.
That creates a healing frequency in our home and in our presence and in everything that we do that helps other people ignite the same in themselves.
Because you literally do become a team towards something together. So it might not look like what on a spiritual outlet like you guys have, but it might
Could
be
be running
something
a
that,
food truck. Yeah,
like a food truck, but it's like you're bringing out that together.
Yeah.
It's about, loving yourself, coming together for the purposes of love, and everything that you do emanates love. And love is the great power of the universe. It's the thing that fuels us, sustains us, uplifts us. It's what everybody's looking for.
Do you know other couples that you've kind of seen as the same example where they were able to together make a greater change for the world or other people?
I would say all of them are in service to others.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But
it also means that sometimes it can be hard for us to be with a couple who is disharmonious and caught in their own dramas and not in service. So, it's like we're ministers in a way, that's sort of the archetype that we are.
Yeah.
We're healers, we're ministers,
yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, the good couples, the couples that we know of quality and harmony are in service to others.
And
not a lot of them though. There's not a lot.
No,
not a lot.
Okay.
So it is.
Would you?
No, go on.
Would you say that looking at those couples, they are the most connected, or is that hard to say because you don't necessarily know? Like the ones that are working together to give the world something.
I think they have spiritual awareness. They're spiritual couples who are in spiritual community, or who are elders or teachers in their doesn't mean they have perfect relationships, but
right. So you could be very spiritual but not like necessarily in love. So I guess I'm trying to say, like, are the relationships that are in service, do the couple seem more connected, or it doesn't make a difference? There's people who aren't in service and they're just as connected.
I think they're more connected because they have common goals.
Yeah.
That commonality that creates that connection. If you don't have that then
Okay.
there tends to be a division and there's separation, and you kind of live your own life, and they just come together to eat
Okay.
and sleep, and then they go off again. So not that that's bad. It's just
Mhm.
when you've got that connection and you work together at this level,
Yeah.
it does create a united energy field that we project, and we represent the masculine and feminine coming together to create a whole, if you like.
Yeah. Maybe just mention to anyone who might be watching, like, about Heart Light. Like, is there anything you want to include, like the website, or what it is that they can get from each of you or both of you together? Anything?
Well, our website, it's Heartlight is kind of it's not really a business, it's our home and it's who we are.
Mhm.
Heartlight came from the song by Neil Diamond, Turn on Your Heartlight.
Oh,
And let it shine wherever you go, and it's about living from the heart, which we talked about earlier, which is getting connected to who you are and understanding who you are, tapping into your soul's purpose, your mission, and to do and accomplish what you've come here to do. So we work with people in different ways to help them do that. We have different programs and counseling or coaching or whatever you want to call it, sessions with people to help them connect to their purpose, to remember who they are. Because when you remember who you are and you make that alignment to your soul, contained within your soul, and that light within you is your purpose and mission is contained within that light or that energy. And as you tap into it and open to it, then it automatically kind of reveals itself. And that's essentially what we help people remember who they are. And from there, everything else flows from there.
Mhm.
I love that
So
so much.
Heartlight, living from the heart. So we're heartlight.ca is our website. Heartlight@rogers.com is our email. And our website has a few of the programs. Yes, we teach Reiki and other workshops and do private sessions with people to help them through issues or
Mhm.
You
Take
do.
people through personal mastery
personal
program
mastery
that we
program.
talked about, which is an in-depth
Yeah.
program of self-exploration. And we're really almost like transformation coaches. People come they're unhappy, or they're not well, or they're challenged in their relationship with their job, or something's come up in their lives. And so we
Yeah.
help them kind of unpack that, understand it, and then empower and encourage them to give birth to more of their true dreams, and to remember that what powerful creators they are, to create the life that they desire, and to not accept anything less
And
than
you
what they deserve.
and you both do it together? Like,
We do it
it's
together. We do it together, and sometimes we'll do it independently, but often it's
okay.
together.
We all help people bring out their natural gifts as well. So, and because we're kind of spiritual coaches, we're encouraging them to not only use their five senses, which are all good at, but also their extra senses. So they're tuning
Wow.
into their intuition, they're tuning into they have clairvoyance, clear seeing, clear audience,
Oh,
clear hearing, clear sentience, clear feeling, and also clear cognizance, which is that instinct that we all have, where we just sort of know things without understanding how we know. So we're trying to help people tap in to the greater aspect of themselves, the more magnificent. We've been repressed and controlled and oppressed, really, in our lives more than we actually know. And so we help people kind of free themselves, to give themselves permission to be powerful, and to tap into their true gifts, whatever that may be. And often it's, helping them connect to their inner child, who always had the dream of dancing, or playing a musical instrument, or being an artist or a poet. Or often we have these early childhood dreams that we somehow pack away, and we think we're not worthy, and that was then, this is now. Well, guess what? Often what they came in with is their true passion and their true knowing. So we encourage them to
Wow.
tap into that, dare to dream, dare to tap into your authentic self.
yeah. So I recall what it is now. It's like with the work we do, we help people find the gift or the opportunity within the challenge. So
Mhm.
every challenge that we have is a call to awakening.
Mm.
And that's what we do. We help people wake up to who they are. And so when it's time, life throws these challenges at people. Well, it's all there designed by the soul to help them awaken. But most of the time, people will default into the victim. And if you do that, you're stuck and you're lost.
That's quicksand.
So what we do is shift all that and help people say, okay, can you see the perfection in this challenge, no matter how difficult it is, because when you analyze it and look into it, you'll find the message and the opportunity and the gift that's in it to help you awaken to another level. When you do the work that we help people do,
Mhm.
then you open up to see how the universe supports you with all the synchronistic events that begin to happen for you to fulfill your desires and your dreams. And that's when the magic really starts to happen. It's
Yeah.
exciting.
That sounds incredible.
Mhm. Well,
Um,
we're really very magical. Human beings are really very magical, and we haven't been allowed to be that. And so we encourage them to be more magical.
well, I'm so glad that I met you both, and thank you so much for bringing that to people. And I do hope that people watching this would actually consider this, because I can just, from doing coaching with you, Dean, and just from talking to you, Rebecca, like, I feel like you guys really touch the heart and the soul, and I just appreciate both of you very much.
Uh,
Well, we
thank
appreciate
you.
you. Thank you very much.